We're joined now by John Licata. He is the founder and chief commodity strategist of Blue Phoenix, an independent energy and metals research company. And you are, John, a bull, right? I mean, yes. You see prices here, and we're not even at $80 going higher. How much higher?
Well, I mean, the last time we were on the show a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Blue Phoenix looking at $95 per barrel. We've since lowered that forecast to 91. Still very bullish, obviously a big move from where we are right now, but we just think that the downside is going to be limited for several reasons. One, we really don't think that Saudi Arabia is going to keep producing as much oil ahead of the December, I think it's the 14th meeting with OPEC.
How much are they producing? Are they at capacity?
It's 9.8 million barrels per day. That's 20% above their typical quota, and they're one of the only ones that have been producing as much. There was a lot of dissension the last time OPEC met Iran, Venezuela. They were fine with pulling back. I think that's the knee-jerk reaction to prices right now. I think that we can see the Saudis probably be the leader in a very disorganized group, cartel, whatever you want to call OPEC these days. But I feel like their relevance on a global stage has certainly subsided. And I think the Saudis are going to pull back.
Even, we think about OPEC, and obviously the Arab Spring has been going on. We still have clashes, obviously, in Libya. There's unrest in Iran. I mean, does that pull back on supply, or do you expect that to subside and then let supply lift a little bit?
Well, it's actually a good point, Matt, because when you look at Libya now is producing about 500,000 barrels a day. That's still down significantly from the 1.6 million that they were producing back in February. Blue Phoenix believes that growth coming back into the marketplace with companies
will come back online fairly soon.
But Total is one of the companies that is saying a couple of weeks, but Eni, the Italian utility company, is saying it could take more than 1 year. We believe that it could take possibly 18 months before we see the full production hit. That's not a bullish case. The other thing I think most people aren't looking at is the fact that there's a lack of refining capacity here in the Northeast. Valero's been shutting down refineries, Sunoco's been shutting down refineries, and now we're starting to move into that winter blend need for heating oil.
Why the lack of refining capacity here?
Oh, the margins are better on the West Coast and the Mid-Continent. I just think that Valero has been trying to integrate ethanol much more into their business model and looking for capture bigger margins. Just today, Tesoro actually announced that they were going to expand with the capacity in North Dakota, and I believe it was add an additional 10,000 barrels per day, and the stock is up 9% today. So Wall Street wants to reward companies that are looking to add capacity in a very favorable margin environment. I don't see that on the Northeast. That could be a very big problem, considering the Northeast is the biggest consumer of heating oil, and I think that's going to help the price of crude oil as we get into the winter.
Well, let's talk about the demand side for a second. I mean, you mentioned heating oil. Also, I noticed that auto sales continue to surprise on the upside, or at least they stay in line.
Ford yesterday. Fantastic numbers.
So with us buying more cars and with winter approaching, what do you expect demand to look like? Obviously, a global recession is a phrase that we hear bandied about on financial news all day long.
Listen, I think it's healthy enough to say that because of what's happened in Europe and here domestically, that we were going to have a pullback in energy needs. But that's not demand destruction. We still don't have a clear alternative to crude oil. 40% of the country's energy comes from coal, and we're making it harder for emission standards related to coal. We have 20% coming from natural gas, and we're trying to regulate that market, and only a minority come from solar, wind, and hydro, less than 10% across the country. Nuclear is an area that's 20% for the United States. We believe Blue Phoenix is very adamant that nuclear is quite necessary, especially when we start to look at the broader demand for electric vehicles starting to become much more prevalent on a global stage.
That's a good point that a lot of people don't think about. Electric vehicles, they're great, and you're not using gas in them, but you've got to power that electric generation somehow, right? So,
yeah, I mean, interesting enough. I mean, I was just watching a show with Ashton Kutcher the other day, and it was 2.5 Men. The new vehicle of choice is the Fisker Karma. That's one of the most elite cars. On the other only owners are Leonardo DiCaprio, Al Gore, and Colin Powell. The point being is that it's becoming mainstream. People are talking about these electric cars. Most of the charging is going to happen at night, but my whole thesis is that without having nuclear power as 24/7 baseload electricity source, that industry could be dead on arrival. We need to figure out how we're going to power that. We believe nuclear is certainly an answer in America's future.
Got it. All right, John, thanks so much for joining us.